Hello. Welcome to the World Healing Tour podcast, where our mission is to help you heal yourself so you can heal the world. Hi, my name is Noah Crane. Each week, we will bring you tips and tools and inspire you to live your most empowered and joyful life. I'm also the founder of the 3G Effect, a daily practice to keep you heart centered in everything you do with a positive mindset and a positive attitude by practicing three important elements. Element number one, every day, remember to have a grateful heart and connect to your gratitude. When you're connected to your gratitude, you're connected to positive feelings and positive emotions, and therefore drawing more positive people, things, and experiences into your life. Element number two, every day, remember to ground in love and compassion. First, love and compassion for yourself by growing strong roots in the world and believing in you. Learning to remove judgments of others, judgments that you have about yourself, learning to fully love and accept yourself exactly where you are. Once you're able to find that love and compassion within yourself, you're then able to share that love and compassion with others. We all want more love and compassion in our lives, right? So we need to share that love and compassion with others. That's how we get more into our own lives. Everything's connected, you guys. And element number three, every day, know that you're not alone on this journey, but rather you are being guided by God. God, source, universe, higher power, whatever you want to call it. I call it God. God is inside you because God created you. God is beside you. God is all around you. Open your heart and soul to God. Have faith and trust in yourself and faith and trust in your journey. We do that by learning to go within ourselves, learning to turn off the noise of others and the noise of the outside world. God will send you messages and messengers just for you to help guide you on this journey. I know because my whole life I lived through that guidance. That's how I've been able to write my book, The Grass is Greenest Where I Am. That's how I've been able to find my soulmate and step into the woman that I am today and find more ease and flow in my life every single day. And of course, I want that for you too. That's why it's called World Healing Tour, because when we heal ourselves, we're able to help others heal. That's why I'm so excited about my guest today, because she does that work. She helps people truly move into to their purpose and their passion in life. My guest today, her name is Helen Levine. She's a coach and a healer. She helps people transform. She wrote an incredible book called Unhack Yourself. I love that title. She helps people drop limited beliefs so they can step into their true power and who they're meant to be. Helen, welcome to the World Healing Tour podcast.
Thank you, Noah. Hi, good to be here. So excited to share in this very similar mission because my personal mission has always been to heal and transform one person, one family at a time and create a ripple effect in the collective to start the healing collectively in the world. And so your mission is just so right in alignment with mine. It's beautiful.
Thank you, Helen. And I'm so excited to have you because I do feel we are so aligned. And let's start by just going into why is healing so important for people to be able to step in who they're meant to be? Why is this healing so important for them to do?
I think when we heal, it starts with recognizing that perhaps there's something within ourselves that's yearning for more. And it's not because a lot of times we tend to think that we need to heal because we're somehow broken. And it took me a long time to realize that that's a false sense to begin with. We're not broken. It's just that the healing, some of us might call it healing, some of us might call it different ways, elevating or whatever words people use to describe that journey, evolving. It's kind of similar. It takes a lot of undoing of what we've been wrongly taught and wrongly maybe took on some false identities, some false belief systems from somebody else. And so to me, healing is it's not just about what it sounds like to a lot of people, like healing physically or mentally, maybe emotionally. It's really more about undoing and unbecoming in order to step into this version of you that is whole and complete. And it's always there underneath all of those layers of false identities and programs. But once we heal and evolve, we just connect to who we truly are. So I just find that it's important because we live often in a state of disconnection from our true essence. And that healing journey is what kind of grants us that opportunity sometimes to recognize that within and to evolve and step into that version of ourselves. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And you said about that we are disconnected from ourselves. Why do you think so many of us are so disconnected from ourselves, so disconnected from our purpose and passion? You know, what would you say holds people back a lot?
Honestly, I think it's very similar for most people at the root, at the core. It's because we have been brought into our lives from birth, from very early childhood, to conform and to believe someone or something and someone else's truth. And so if we're brought into someone's reality in a sense, right? Like we're born into already pre-existing reality, then how do we truly know who we are without that? Right? And so it becomes this notion of this is how the name for my book Unhack Yourself came through for me because I had this deep revelation that we've all been hacked. And what I mean by that is exactly the that idea that we are not our true essence, true self, kind of operating from our innate authentic truth, but rather we operate from someone else's, many other people's truths. And it starts out likely from our parents, but their truth is not always their own. It started with their parents, right? And so it runs through the lineages. And of course, that truth takes on an identity of its own based on so many things that our ancestors went through and whatever experiences and traumas and wars and famines they might have experienced. And on top of it, there's the societal norms and truths that we have to conform to and live by. So, how do we possibly know who we are, right? When we are constantly from every direction bombarded with all these other truths. Does that make sense?
It makes so much sense. And, we're going, I love what you said about being able, that we take so much in from so many different directions. And, that made me think of what you were saying, generational trauma. Why is generational trauma? It's so easily passed on from one generation to another to another. We really have to do that deep dive into ourselves. And, I wanted to talk more about that.
Yeah, generational trauma is a really deep topic. And it's something that I'm very passionate about because I had this profound experience that kind of led me to that. It was an out of body experience during a medical procedure where I realized that I was experiencing in my cellular memory and in my memory, even though it didn't happen to me, thank God, but it was taken to a Holocaust chamber, and it's what my grandparents and their families went through. So it was a really wild experience. I don't often share on it, but since you asked, that's kind of what awakened that whole inner knowing for me that we do really carry that generational trauma in our I don't want to say the word like DNA, but it's in our cellular memory. I'm assuming, I'm not a scientist, but I'm assuming that it is somewhere in our DNA, maybe not in the way that scientists kind of know it, but it's in our energy. It's in our remembrance, even though it didn't happen to us directly. It's a part of who we are because we do come from certain ancestral experiences and lineages that our relatives and grandparents and however many generations deep may have gone through. And so it becomes a generational trauma pattern until we somebody in a lineage recognizes it and consciously realizes and says it ends with me, because until then it's this unconscious program, just like we take on our hair color and eye color and all those things. I firmly believe that we take on our ancestral experiences in our cellular memory, and it ends up creating who we are, even though it's not the experience that happens to us, but the energy, the essence of that is something that is within us. So it could show up in so many different ways through not understanding why we have certain need to save up consistently or having some food issues. For me, I remember having some strange things like that in my childhood and then realizing later my grandparents experienced famine because they came from war. And it was showing up for me as certain things relating to food. And I remember kind of peeling through that and recognizing that. I've had so many of these aha moments. And then I've had many clients with really wild stories from slavery trauma in their ancestral wounds to wars and different experiences that their ancestors, parents, grandparents, multiple generations deep went through. And it was affecting their current reality. For instance, success is often blocked by something. Some people are like, why can't I break through to that next level? I seem to be everything, doing everything right. The education is there, the career path is great, but there's like money comes, money goes, seems to be like a really big one. There's this leak, and it's because there's an energetic leak. And I had an interesting client story with that I could share now or later. Let me
But
know.
well, do you think we come to this world already with those traumas and with that energy, that, like to heal that? Do you think we come to this world to actually fix ourselves or heal something? Does everybody come down here with trauma, would you think?
I definitely believe we do. I have never met a single person who has not come in with already some core trauma within their cells, within their cellular memory, unconscious energy, basically. And it's something that once we recognize it, that's not to fear it. I don't want anybody to ever think like, oh my God, I have all this trauma and that's why I'm creating this. That is not why we come in with that. It is just like you asked, it's about recognizing it and shifting out of that consciously so that we don't live in a state of unconsciousness anymore. And so we don't unconsciously continue to co-create somebody else's reality. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So part of it, like the title of your book, we have to, like you said, we have to unhack ourselves, right? To realize what is it within ourselves that's stopping us from truly reaching our true potential in life? What's costing us from finding our soulmate or being in a positive relationship? Because a lot of people keep doing the same things over and over again, expecting a different result, right?
Yeah.
And we know that's the definition of insanity. That doesn't work. And so, we always seem to be in our own way, though. How do we learn to get out of our own way with that?
For sure, for sure. We are definitely our own obstacles in our own way. What I realized that as I was coaching my clients over the years, I was very repetitive in certain steps. And that's how my steer method was born. And that's what I also share in the book, is that it came through for me that number one thing that we all have in common as humans in the way that we create our own obstacles is we get stuck in our own stories. And the stories, what I mean by that is the story usually of, oh, this is what's happened to me. Oh, poor me. Can you believe why does this keep happening to me? So once you start to connect to what is that repetitive story that you keep telling yourself, that is literally your first sign that something is showing up to be healed, to be changed, to be released, to be witnessed, noticed, to be brought to your consciousness, because truly we live in a state of unconsciousness, I think, for the most part of our lives. And without really recognizing that, that is one of the simplest, maybe not the easiest, but one of the simplest ways that we can start to change our lives is by noticing the story that we keep telling ourselves. And then from that, there's, other steps, but that truly is a huge beginning for anyone that's looking to start to shift something in their reality. It doesn't matter whether it's relationships, health, wealth. We live in a lot of these lies that we keep telling ourselves without really examining them. And so we believe our own lies,
Mm-hmm.
and the irony is the people that are close to us will also reaffirm those lies a lot of times because they mean well and because they want to support us. But in reality, once you recognize the lies and step into the truth, the raw truth without all of the story, then that's when you begin to heal. And interestingly, the people around begin to change as well.
Yeah, and that makes me think of, what you were saying, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're going to be right. Like if you don't think your soulmate's out there, if you don't believe it, right, Helen, you're probably not going to manifest. If you're telling yourself, like, there's no good men out there, there's not somebody for me, there's not the right person for me. If you believe that with all your heart and soul, how can you actually manifest it, right?
Absolutely. And that's what majority of my women clients struggle with. And a lot of women have a hard time actually grasping this. They like resist. I don't want to hear it. There are no good men out there. Look, the reality has been proving it to me. You know, all these men, they want somebody, and then that's where the lies start. I actually was writing a post on that. It's so funny that you brought this up. The lies like, oh, they want like the younger women only, and they want the skinny women, and they want whatever the lies are. And I go, hold on a second, give me an example where you know for sure that it's not true. And then immediately I could see them shifting because they know somebody who is a complete opposite, who met their soulmate. Maybe they're older, maybe they're heavier, maybe they're whatever, right? And suddenly it's like, okay, so if that is the truth for them, then why do you keep reaffirming that it's not going to be the truth for you? But the more you believe your own lie, the more you're continuing to create from that lie. Because if there are no good men out there, if that is your program, if that is your belief system, then guess what? There is never going to be that good man out there waiting for you because we create our own reality and the universe will always prove us right because every person, every experience is a reflection of our internal belief systems and our programs.
So we're literally aligning with those things that we don't want because we decided that we can't have them. So we're causing our own pain and suffering in that way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just incredible to me. And so how do people, so once you realize like, hey, I'm telling myself a story, like you said, right? They realize that they're telling themselves a story. How do they start shifting that? Because I believe that there's a bit, to start noticing is the first step, right? But what could they do next to start, reprogramming themselves, like you were talking about? Because obviously they're so hardwired that it's hard for them to even see past where they are right now.
So that's where that steer method, and I go over it in the book and in my sessions and group programs. This is where we dive deep into that. So the steps, I'm glad to share it here and hopefully it can help some of your listeners, is after you recognize the story, and there's not one story, there's usually going to be multiple stories that will continue to show up.
Mm-hmm.
Then you begin to notice what thought patterns
Mm-hmm.
are kind of perpetuating that story over and over, reaffirming it. And then you begin to question those. Again, it takes awareness, it takes a conscious desire, first of all, to change, which not a lot of people want.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are like, give me a magic pill. Give me a magic pill and make it go away and bring me my soulmate or bring the money, heal me. And the truth is, I always tell everybody, I can't heal you. Nobody can heal you. You have all the power within yourself. Sometimes you just have been so disconnected that it's very helpful to gain the tools or to have the facilitator, somebody that's been through the journey that you're aligned with to guide you through it. And there's nothing wrong with asking for help. It's incredible. And I ask for help when I need it. And I find that's super important to actually surrender your ego and ask for help and ask for guidance when you need it most. But it's still super important to recognize and stay in your own awareness and notice where are those repetitive patterns and thought loops coming in. And then the next biggest step is to start to actually recognize what emotional pain are you holding on to? Where are you holding on to, since we're talking about soulmates here, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
from past relationships to some wounds, to some unforgiveness, to some resistance or anger or blame or shame, all of these really low vibrational frequencies and emotions. Because when you are stuck in that, they're keeping you in the lower frequency, and they continue to perpetuate more negative thoughts to reaffirm your negative story. Oh, poor me, this is what happened to me. And then you continue to justify for why things are not showing up in the way that you want them to, without realizing that you are the one co creating that vicious cycle over and over and over. So then we go deeper to peel through the layers of those wounds and traumas and pains and belief systems again that reaffirm all of it. And as we do that, what happens is we shift our frequency, we change our vibrational energy, and we begin to transform who we are. And by the virtue of that, as you change who you are at the level of your energy, your identity, you, of course, naturally, organically begin to attract a very different person and reality into your reality, because the universe begins to reflect back at you, and you become a vibrational match to a very different experience. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, I love that. I think that's really, really important what you're saying to change your energy. Because if you're, like you said, if you're vibrating in a place of like victim mode, and not seeing things past where you are right now, you're not going to be able to be in a more high vibration where you're actually drawing more positive things to you. Do you think gratitude has anything to do with? Do you use gratitude to get them in a higher vibration as a tool?
I think gratitude is huge. It's something that I share and teach a lot on. And I think a lot of people think it's so simple. It's so not a big deal. But it's very interesting, actually. I've had some clients over the years where I remember being shocked the first time I heard that. Well, I don't have anything to be grateful for in my life. And I was so taken aback, because if that's what somebody actually thinks and believes and feels ultimately, because it's all about a feeling, then how can they possibly attract something truly positive and aligned with that vibration of gratitude if they don't even connect to that energy, right? And so I found it fascinating to then help people shift into that frequency of gratitude, because that is when you begin to heal and evolve. And so gratitude, a lot of people take it on as like, oh, let's practice gratitude. And I do it as exercises with people for sure, because I will say, like, give me 5 or 10 things you're grateful for. But the truth is, that's a simplified sort of tool that anybody can do. But the goal is not just to think right now, give me 5 things you're grateful for, because that's wonderful to do. The goal is to actually connect to this feeling, which, when I connect to the feeling of gratitude, which is pretty much a state I live in,
Hmm.
I wouldn't say 100% maybe consciously of the time, but definitely majority of the time. It's the sense of such profound warmth, love, and just being thankful for every moment, and just simply being in my life. So I can look at a tree, and it just fills me up, and people think it's weird because they cannot relate to it sometimes. I could stare at the ocean and like tears just start pouring, and it's because I am so connected to this abundance of the universe, and gratitude is a huge part of it. It's literally being grateful for everything that it is. It's this vastness that we live in. It's this sense of expansion and connecting to how incredible we are, and being a part, a small part of this gigantic abundant universe that has everything already in it for us and within us. And so gratitude is a huge energy that, once we align with it and really connect to it, then exercising it just stays as a reminder to bring ourselves into that state, because it's more than just thinking of being grateful. It's connecting to this state of being that way.
Yeah, connecting to that energy of gratitude, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and what are some other energies that you get them connected to for healing besides gratitude?
I think gratitude is a powerful energy.
Do
It's
you
an
think
interesting.
being authentic maybe is that something that you use with them is to be authentic? Because I've heard authenticity is a really high vibration as well, and I feel like not everybody's living their authentic. They're not being authentic with themselves or with others, right?
Yeah, I've never thought of labeling it as an energy. It's an interesting question the way you
Mhm.
mentioned
Mhm.
it. Um, I I guess it's just more tuning into the frequency of your authentic truth.
Mhm.
And so I don't necessarily think of it like, oh, connect to this energy. It's more of connecting to who you are
Mhm.
without all of those layers of false stories and identities.
Mhm.
And I don't like to over complicate things and over label things.
Mhm.
I kind of like to stay, um, because people, not everyone is like on the same. Sometimes it's hard to put
Same
energy in
frequency,
words.
yeah.
Not just frequency, but like different people use different verbiage around
Mhm.
things, right? And I noticed that sometimes my language might be a little out there for some people. And so I kind of consciously prefer to stay a little more grounded whenever I can so that it's not so woo woo and weird for people. But in reality, it's just truly about feeling, tuning into who you are, connecting to that feeling within, and forgiveness is a huge part of it. I think a lot of people live in so much guilt
Mhm.
and shame and blame that that's the energy that seems to really drag us down, and it's disconnecting us further from who we are. So if you ask me what other energy it is to tune into, I would say it's I don't want to sound cliche when people say, oh, connect to love. It just sounds so, I mean, it's beautiful, but not everyone can grasp what that really means, because if we come from a deeply wounded inner child and if we come from a lot of trauma, it's very difficult to connect to that energy of love because you don't even know what it feels like. And I've used to live in that state. I used to be confused about what it means to love myself. And so I prefer to guide people kind of gradually into start with gratitude, start with letting go of a lot of who you are not, and then you just completely gradually align with who you are. And you don't need to overthink it, you don't need to overcomplicate it. It's just, again, undoing and unbecoming. And then the more you let go of who you're not, the more you actually end up connecting to who you are. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And one other thing that I wanted to bring into the place, and I do believe forgiveness is a huge thing that we have to work on to be able to give ourselves the freedom to move forward. But I also want to talk about the fact that so many people are stuck in their emotions and stuck in their feelings because, we talk about feelings and you talked about feelings, and I know feelings are a good gauge, right? But when we live in our feelings, that like day in and day out, and we do everything in our lives through our feelings, it can really be an obstacle. Would you agree with that?
Well, I don't know if a lot of people live through their feelings. I think a lot of people live in a state of reacting.
Mhm.
And I don't, is that what you mean by that?
Well, I mean, like, they're not motivated. Their feelings stop them. Oh, I don't, they don't go past their feelings. They kind of get stuck in their feeling, their emotions, their feeling, which kind of take them towards a negative emotions and a negative place, because the feelings are not, oh, like, I feel like feelings are great to gauge like where we are and where we want to go, but I think if you're a very emotional person, like I'm talking about somebody who's very emotional and lives everything in their feelings and gets stuck in that negative emotions of feelings, because feelings can also drag you down if you just are not aware of them, right?
Yes. But I don't know if I necessarily agree that people live so much in their feelings. I think people live more in their thinking,
Mm-hmm.
and then they overthink and try to what I call logicalize their
Uh-huh.
way out of what they're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really it's interesting because that's what came in as a download today earlier for a client is we tend to rationalize what is actually something in our energy. And then we feel things, but we don't understand them. And so I think what you are asking is we're not stuck so much in the feelings. It's just that we don't understand what we're feeling. And then we try to overanalyze it sometimes, or what's even worse is we ignore it or we bury it. So, what I mean by that is there is what people would, let's say, label as a negative emotion that comes through, and it feels like deep, let's say, sadness or grief, or what some would call depression or anxiety, and all these things come through. And what we want to do often is escape it. It doesn't feel good. And so we try to run away from it, avoid it, bury it, hide from it, drink it away, drug it away, maybe hide from it through overworking or whatever escape method that we use. And the truth is, until we actually face what it is that we're feeling and then allow ourselves to sit with it and fully process it, then we will continue to feel those same emotional patterns and continue to try to understand or continue to bury. So, for me, when it comes to dealing with our emotional state, the most important thing anybody can do is to honor themselves and allow themselves the opportunity to really feel what they're feeling and allow it to fully process and not try to escape it and not try to bury it and not try to overanalyze it because that's what I used to do for decades when I was suffering from deep, deep anxiety and depression and panic attacks in my youth. And I constantly was seeking answers logically, but it was when I started to heal energetically and connect to my traumas and connect to what I was holding on to and not processing, only then was I able to truly find the deeper healing and the evolved sort of experience that was guiding me out of the pain and into the more inner truth, I guess, for the lack of a better word. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have to heal. We have to be in touch with ourselves in order to heal. That's a big part of it is going within ourselves. And I wanted to go into the healing process. Once you get to a place, how do you start removing those blocks? Because we were talking like we have so many blocks there in our way because of our traumas, because of our past. How do we start? We talked about some of the things like being present and noticing. Is there anything else that can help you, like talk about money blocks? Let's go to money blocks. How do people, some people have those money blocks, right? What can they do to start healing those money blocks? Because I believe everybody should be abundant. Nobody should be in a place of scarcity.
For sure. And I believe that we are all abundant. And
Mm-hmm.
again, it's our stories and belief systems and programs that keep us in scarcity because that is what we are a vibrational match to. And then once we change those stories, then the reality begins to change. Because I came to United States as a poor immigrant. I had absolutely nothing. We had a suitcase per family member, and that's all we had. And I didn't even speak a word of English. So what future did I have? What potential was there? And yet I did not connect to that scarcity in who I am. Rather, I just kind of lived in what it was. It was that experience, that circumstance happening to me at that time, with an understanding that somehow I can change that. And so it's something. Wait, I just lost my track of thought. Sorry, what was the question,
Um,
Noah?
no, no, you were saying that when you came to this country, we're talking about money blocks and how you were trying to give the example how you came to this country. You didn't have anything. You just came here with nothing, but how you were able to not connect to that
Beautiful. So
scarcity.
yeah, money blocks, it's a very interesting thing. And you asked how can we heal it? That was it. So there are so many different tools and ways and methods that people can either do it themselves or many different healers and even coaches that can help people see through their blocks. Because sometimes if we just have a hard time kind of seeing through our own inner blocks, and we all have that. We're human, so sometimes it's just hard to see through our own patterns. And what I do in my one on one work is I call time travel healing, is we literally go back time and space into the particular moments where that block was created. And it's fascinating what I've seen with my clients, money blocks that sometimes are their own, created based on something that they took on as their truth. Similar with relationship blocks and finding a soulmate. At the end of the day, it's all about the unconscious belief systems and programs that block us from seeing and feeling and connecting to the abundance that is within each of ourselves and in the universe. And as, for instance, in the time travel healing, we then energetically just release that emotional charge from that moment. And a lot of my clients actually feel that. And I feel it through my whole body because it's just an energetic charge. And so, being that we are magnetic and energetic beings, souls that are living this human experience, we all have that ability and we all have that capability to recognize that, to feel into it, and to release it. And like I said, there are many different ways. Some people can go through deep meditation and just find it themselves, and it's beautiful, and they can release it. You know, some people go through different other modalities. There's no lack of modalities, tools, and people that can help someone. There is only, if someone feels stuck, it's because they are keeping themselves stuck. And that's an interesting thing. It's something that I talk about in a book, Unhack Yourself, is why would somebody keep themselves stuck? And believe it or not, on some level, it is serving them subconsciously. Now, that's an interesting topic in and of itself.
Yeah, I agree. It makes them feel safe because I did that for a long time. I felt safe when I was playing small and was safe. So would you say that would be part of it?
It's definitely a part of it for a lot of people. And it could be other things, like, for instance, when somebody is stuck in some physical pain, or let's call it disease or illness or some kind of ailment, it's because there's a dis-ease, an emotional unease, a breaking, energetic disconnection somewhere that is somehow serving them because maybe they're getting more attention from their family.
Mhm.
Or maybe, like you said, they're keeping safe and they get to play small and not show up as their best self. They get to hide because then the fear of, oh my God, what's going to happen if I do show up? And maybe I can lose some friends or family, or maybe it's just scary. And I was there. Oh my God, was I there for a long time? Even this book, it was written for over a decade. But up until 2023, I just did not feel ready to release this baby into the world. I was scared. I was hiding. I was not showing up on social media. I was not even available, forget video, not even audio. And then it was only in the last maybe 3, 4 years that I began to show up because I had
Mm.
to clear a lot of my own unconscious blocks. Some of it was actually from past, I think, past lives as a healer, as well as some of my own traumas and some generational patterns. So it's an interesting question. Anybody who feels stuck, I would say, ask yourself: is how is this serving you? In what way are you keeping yourself stuck? And a lot of times, people can have a breakthrough just from connecting to that if they're being honest with themselves.
Mm. That's a great question. I like that. That's a really great question. How is that serving you? That's great. So fear and doubt, we were talking about that a little bit while you were talking. It does kill a lot of dreams. It does keep you from showing up, like you said, fully in the world. It does keep you from being aligned with where you want to be in life. It gets you to hide out from the world and not fully play out in the world, not be fully self-expressed. And that's part of the self-sabotage when we are in our own way, and that's, I think, part of the money blocks as well. Would you say that's what a lot of time keeps us stuck?
For sure, yeah. Fear has so many layers, it's multifaceted,
Mm-hmm.
but it's definitely underneath any blocks. There's always some fear.
Yeah.
And it's a question of ultimately coming down to what is it that you're fearing, right? That what are you hiding from? What's the underlying reason? But deep down underneath a lot of money and success blocks is deep unworthiness wound.
Mm.
It's this deep belief, and not everyone will find it right away. Not everyone is willing to face that right away. It could be different other layers that show up before that. But this may trigger someone, even like, I feel worthy. What do you mean?
Mm.
And then when they really look deeper within, there is this true not deserving or not feeling worthy of being successful, of having a lot of money, or having that soulmate kind of relationship, whatever it is someone struggles with, there's a very often I find is layers of that not deserving or unworthy. And it's from a lot of childhood stuff. It'll show up as, and once people start to peel away through that, they definitely connect to why that shows up. And it's a huge saboteur in people's success paths.
So, so yeah. So do you think once we're able to figure out why, what's that block within ourselves, we can move past it like powerfully?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that would be the thing. So once you find out, okay, I feel unworthy inside, or I feel undeserving, is that like an automatic switch, or is there more for them to do to be able to change that?
Well, it depends. Usually there's many layers to that, right? And so it just depends on what led them to believe that.
Mm.
Is this their own belief, or is this maybe something, a lot of women took that on from their mothers, and it depends on what their mothers went through, or maybe it was something in the womb. Some people who were born to a mom who um didn't want them as a child, didn't want to have a kid, or was too scared and wanted maybe to abort them, all these things I've seen with clients, it'll create that even from the womb. And then someone goes through life feeling unable to create a successful dynamic in whatever area of their life. And it's because they just had that energy that they took on, that they're unworthy and undeserving to even be a part of this life because of what their mom believed or felt, right? In the womb, while they were in the womb. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and they're carrying it with them through their lives, and until they're able to break through that, it actually can hold them really back from being fully, living their passion and their
Yeah.
purpose.
Or it could be so many other things.
Yeah,
You could be in school and somebody made fun of you, or a teacher said something and you felt
sure.
embarrassed. And suddenly you decided to just shut down and hide and never speak your truth again. There's so many different scenarios why somebody has that. And I've seen all different kinds with my clients. But the truth is, underneath it all, once you recognize where that came from, that alone just helps someone shift out of it, because then you no longer carry that charge. You no longer associate with that being who you are. You let it go, right? And the moment you are not that, then of course you become what and who you are without it, right?
Yeah, it's incredible how the inner work can change your outer world. It's all connected, right? And how
Absolutely.
we talk to ourselves and how we how we express ourselves in the world. You hear so many people talking to themselves just so negative, judging themselves, really beating themselves up. And, it's hard to create positive things with a negative conversation. Would you agree with that?
Oh my God, it's such a yes, it is huge. I often say, when people don't realize our words, they are so powerful. And it's interesting. I heard this somewhere years ago, and it made such perfect sense that our words are spells. And there's a reason why they call it spelling when we spell out words. And we don't really think of it, but think about it for a moment. You literally create your own spell on yourself all day long. How many times do we go throughout our day saying, I can't? Oh no, I am this and this and this.
Mm.
I am poor. I am fat. I am stupid. I am ugly. I am not lucky. Oh my God, if you assign that to your I am identity, and that is your truth. And that truth is what guides you through your day, every day, over and over, creating your reality. So, for anybody listening to this, if that is how you speak to and about yourself, just even shifting out of that I am statement and into I am my best self. I am stepping into my best version of myself. I am healthy. I am successful. I am incredible. I am abundant. Notice how your entire energy shifts just
Mm.
from changing that, because now you're creating a whole different spell on yourself. So it's super, super important to start to catch your phrases, your words, And a lot of them are so repetitive on autopilot. This is one of the biggest things my clients recognize throughout our work together in group and in private sessions, because immediately my ears perk up when I hear somebody say certain things about themselves or about their story, about their lives, about their blocks. And the second they connect to it, they start laughing. They're like, oh my God, I did not realize that I was saying it to myself. And we all do it to some extent. I will, we're human, so I will still sometimes catch myself, or sometimes I'll have one of my coaches point out something, and I'd be like, huh, didn't even see that one. And I'm pretty good at catching these things. So it's like a game that we can begin to play with ourselves and with the universe and start to notice how our words, how our language and thoughts, it's all the same, it's all connected, change our reality day to day.
Absolutely. How important is spirituality to our healing?
Well, that's an interesting question. That would be a different answer probably for every person you ask. For me, it's a huge part of my journey. It's a huge part of who I am. And interestingly, having grown up in Soviet Union, former Soviet Union, the country that doesn't exist anymore, I certainly was raised in the world where we were not taught anything about spirituality at all. And words like God or any kind of esoteric spiritual kind of language, like your authentic self or your true essence, that was so far from anybody's vocabulary. Everything was very grounded material, and in fact, we were really programmed to be disconnected as much as possible from that true essence and from God and from universe and from understanding that there is all of this within ourselves and our reality. So, but the truth is it was always there. I always felt this deep connection that I just couldn't explain because we were not taught the proper vocabulary. And then I remember having the moments of what I realized later were spiritual sort of experiences. And as I was going through my spiritual awakening in my 20s and continue to go through, it's not like it's an overnight thing, I was realizing just how important it is. But again, maybe somebody doesn't like to label it as spiritual. Maybe they don't want to call it certain things. Maybe they have a resistance to certain words because, like me, they weren't brought into that and brought up to speak in that way. That's okay. As long as you're honest with yourself and feel and allow yourself to express it in the way that resonates for you. It does not need to be anybody else's truth. It needs to be your authentic truth. To me, that is what unhacking yourself is all about, is being truth to yourself and with yourself about what your life and your experiences are, and not needing to justify or get permission from anybody else, because we are each living our own journey. At the end of the day, we're all here to have our own soul experience in whatever way it is meant for us to grow and evolve.
Yeah, and when you say being your truth, again, that makes me think of being authentic with yourself, right? Because truth is authenticity, right? If we're not truthful, we can't be, really, manifest our truth into the world because we have to be truthful with our first self first. And I love that you said it doesn't matter, about spiritual or, some people, like you said, that word can get in their way. For me, it's something that I just connect to because some people don't even believe in energy, right?
Yeah. Or they just might not even know
Mm-hmm.
because, again, we were taught that
Mm-hmm.
everything is science,
Mm-hmm.
right? And even though quantum physics is science, and the more people start to understand that, and energy is something that now has been definitely spoken about much more so in the scientific community, it's still not what's widely accepted in the scientific circles, I guess. And so it might not be the language people are used to speaking, but that's why it's important to feeling rather than maybe sometimes understanding. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. You have to speak to people in their own language because, everybody processes things completely different. So it's great that you're able to figure out how to work with people so they can process it for themselves.
Yeah. And it's funny, like sometimes I'll work with especially very financially minded men that are like high level executives. It's always fun to work with that community
Mm.
for me. And I will ask them right away before we even get into any session, Do you speak the words of like energy, or is that something that is so out there for you that you just don't even want to go there? And I want to understand that because I want to make sure that whatever the resistance that might come up for somebody, that we at least minimizes as much as possible because we don't need to worry about how we call or say certain things. At the end of the day, it's still about connecting to certain energies, whether we call it or not, the words. And then once somebody starts to work with me, whether they like it or not, they're still going to connect to the spiritual side of themselves one way or another. They're still going to become somewhat open to the understanding that there is more to ourselves than just the physical reality, than just the money that they're trying to earn or increase in their life. And there are underlying reasons behind it. So maybe some people will talk more in sort of psychological terms that they're more used to hearing. Maybe they've been to therapy and have now gotten accustomed to speaking about their inner child or something like that. But I will still get people to somehow, even in the smallest way, to connect to that deeper essence of who they are. Because the truth is, to me, once they become open to it, they realize that there is that part of themselves that they've just been disconnected from.
Yeah, and I think that disconnection is what causes a lot of their suffering as well. Would you agree with that?
Yes, for sure, for sure.
How important is it for people to meditate? I know to find time to just, close their eyes, connect to their breath, be present in that moment. Like, how important is that practice to your as part of the healing journey?
So, to be honest, it's not something that I understood for a long time. It's definitely a huge part of who I am today. But years ago, when I was just kind of going through this whole journey, I did not understand it. Again, I wasn't taught it. So it almost sounded like some weird voodooish type practice that I was like, I remember like even 30 years ago, somebody said yoga. Oh, that means it's for weird people. It's probably something that it's something like magical that I want to stay away from. So all these things, I think they come from our limited, again, programs and our own limiting beliefs that we acquire through life and through our experiences. And meditation seems to scare away a lot of people even today because they don't fully understand it. So to me, meditation is something that is a practice that's individual and unique to ourselves, to each of us, ourselves. For me, for many years, it wasn't like a formal practice, but rather it was more of tuning in to hearing I guess, my own essence. It's this empty space that I would connect to, that I would receive the channel downloads through, that I didn't have any like formal practice. I didn't sit, as some people would, think like meditation is all about the om, or something like that. I wasn't doing any of that. I could just simply, for instance, for me, it's usually around water. So if I'm by the ocean, I could just sit and stare at the ocean and I will be in that state where, again, sometimes like just tears are pouring and not because I'm crying, because there is no thoughts. And I remember having those moments in the beginning. The first couple of times, it was many years ago, it almost freaked me out because I was like, what just happened? I had no thoughts. Am I going crazy? It was like a very unusual sensation. And and then I was realizing that actually feels good. It was this calm. And then it was realizing that I was just being. I was not thinking. I was not processing. I was certainly not worrying, which was a huge part of my life. And coming from a traumatized brain, it's used to certain patterns. And so it was a very different experience of not being in that trauma response, but rather being in this calm state of just being and like being a witness to what's happening. I remember having this realization that, wow, I was me, witnessing and observing myself being me.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was like a wild beginning also of so much more profound shift and healing for me years ago.
That's great. So you think people can should just take a few minutes each day and just find that calmness within themselves, maybe sit with their eyes closed or not even closed, but just sit still for a little while, just connect to their breath, connect to themselves. You know, do you think that's important on a daily basis?
I do. I think it's huge because, especially in today's world, and I see it with my own family members, we are so busy with a lot of things. And on top of it, with the phones and computers,
Mm.
they literally are there and disconnect us even more from ourselves. And they become this other way of escaping our own tuning into ourselves. And so instead of tuning in, we are tuning out and going into the phone and checking that latest Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever it is,
Mhm.
and never really allowing ourselves that quiet space to just be. And if anyone feels really stuck, and if anyone feels constantly worried, give yourself that space. Give yourself, even if it's just 2 minutes, think about how little that is, and yet how much you will honor yourself to give yourself that 2 minutes. And then it might become 5 minutes. And you don't need to take somebody else's label of how you need to meditate. You could do transcendental meditation, or you could do an om, or you could do, probably dozens or maybe even hundreds of different ways of meditating. I don't know.
There's so many guided meditations. I mean, there's so much online too, right?
Yeah, and YouTube is a beautiful space for turning on a meditation and then just be. Put the phone away. If you want to be with YouTube, to find a meditation that works for you, play around with different ones and just sit quietly and tune into yourself. Because a lot of those guided meditations can help you kind of get rid of the noise that's out there and with the mind, and also recognize that it's perfectly okay, especially in the beginning. There will be thoughts, and don't judge yourself, because that's a huge block for a lot of us, is the constant judgment.
Mhm.
And release that and just allowing ourselves to be our true selves, to just simply be
Mhm.
quiet in your own space for 2 to 5 minutes, and notice how much more peaceful and aligned you will feel. And interestingly, if you continue to do that every day, how many aha moments and revelations and realizations you will actually experience just by allowing yourself to disconnect from the outside noise and reconnect with your essence.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. I believe that's so important. Well, Helen, how can people connect you and find you? I wish we had more time, but I wanted to, make sure that people can connect to you, find your book and all that.
Sure, thank you. And yeah, time flew by. I didn't even realize. My goodness, this was such a fun conversation. So anybody that wants to connect, my website is healthandwealthcoach.com. And actually, I want to give this beautiful gift to your community, Noah. I have this free ebook. It's called Unveiling the Mystery of Generational Trauma, for anyone that is maybe trying to understand, what does it really mean? What generational patterns are you bringing into your reality? Where do you come from? And why certain patterns are showing up in your life you might not understand? Definitely get your free copy. Go to healthandwealthcoach.com and just download it. There's no strings attached. There is no payment of any kind, just the free ebook for you to enjoy and hopefully gain some awareness from that. And otherwise, feel free to connect with me on social media, Instagram, Health and Wealth Coach, or I am starting to be more on my YouTube channel. It's all Health and Wealth Coach across the board. And LinkedIn, for anybody looking there, I actually started to host some live audio rooms where I coach live for free. For anybody that feels stuck, definitely follow me there. And Clubhouse is another area where Noah and I have connected, and
Mhm.
it's another great space. But Instagram, if anybody wants to maybe reach out directly, have any questions, have any kind of issues that you want some kind of answer on, I'm always happy to give, to serve, to connect as much as possible. And it's Health and Wealth Coach. Just send me a DM.
Thank you, Helen, so much. It was so great to having you on. I want to,
Oh, and Amazon, of course, is where you can purchase Unhack Yourself. It's available on Amazon in hardcover, full color edition, or paperback, or Kindle. So
beautiful book. Thank you so much, Helen. You have so much wisdom. I want to thank my special guest, Helen Levine, for joining me today at the World Healing Tour podcast. Until next time, remember to have a grateful heart, to ground in love and compassion, and know every day that you're not alone. You are guided by God. Have a beautiful week, everyone. Namaste.
Thank you, Noah. Have a beautiful week.
Thank you.